Hello and welcome back. Here we are to talk about JavaScript and the date object, which we've seen is an extremely exciting and fascinating realm to be in. Yeah, I think dates are pretty good. Um, so far, we've talked about what the date object is. We talked about how to create a date object that's today. We talked about how to find the difference between two dates and calculate the components of a date, like the day, month, and year, right? Let's talk about creating an offset. So an offset is when you have a date like today, but you want to calculate a date that's like next week, or 7 days ago, or 36 hours in the future, something like that, right? So how would you do that? So let's walk through the steps, okay? Let's imagine you made a date here, and that's the date we're going to work with. And this could have been like your birthday. It could have been, any date that you calculated, right? And let's imagine that we want to calculate when an assignment was given, when it started, and when it's due. So what we're going to do here is we're going to also create a brand new date that's a copy of the original date. Okay, so to do that, what we'll do is we'll make a new date here, right? So that's like, think about this as now, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to make a new date and take the original date and pass it in as a parameter. So that's pretty interesting, right? Because earlier we made a date in this way. We said new date with no parameters. And then we made a new date by passing in a string. So we gave it a human readable date, like 1/29/2021. So that's another way to initialize the date. And then we also saw another way to initialize a date. We used the year, like 2012, the month, and the day, the 23rd, right? And you could also include the hours, minutes, seconds, right? So we initialized a date with the numbers, and now we're initializing a date in another way. We're essentially doing this. We're saying new date equals new date, right? But if you had a date that like if you took one of these dates, like maybe this one, and you passed it in here, then we would be creating a copy of that date. So if you pass a date into the date object, you can copy that date, okay? I'm going to write it like that because I think that that's kind of funny. Okay, so there's three different ways to initialize the date object. And so all these dates right here, date, start date, and due date, are all going to be the same value. They're going to be exactly the same. So what I want to do now is I want to offset these two dates so they have a different value from the original date, okay? So let's imagine that the start date is 7 days ago, okay? So what we'll do is we'll say start date dot set date, okay? So the set date method lets us change the date, okay? So the date is the day of the month, the day on the calendar, okay? And what we can do is we can get the date from the original date, right? And then subtract 7, right? So we'll take the date and we'll subtract 7. So this start date now should have a value that's 7 days previous to the date that we defined here, the original date, okay? And now let's imagine we want to get a date that's 3 days from now. We can do the same thing. So we can say due date is set date. And then we'll get the date.getDate. We'll get the date from the date, and then we'll add 3, okay? And this calculates, like, if you were on the 1st and you subtracted 7, it'll figure out that you're in the previous month. And the same thing happens here if you go over the end of the month, okay? So now if we calculate in the console, let me go find that spot here. Yeah, I guess it's right here, right there, right? Yeah, so that's, wait, hold on. Let me make sure I'm in the right location there. Yeah, so that's problem 1. So this is our date right here. Yeah, it's the 22nd and the 1st, right? So if I said start date is get date, and then I did due date is get date. The start date was the 22nd, and the due date is the 1st. So today is the 29th. The start date was 7 days ago. That gives us the 22nd. And if I add 3 days, then that gives us the 1st. Okay, so that seems to work. And then if I want to print the start date and the due date, they print out like this as strings, right? So I got the start date is here, 21st, 1st, and the due date is 2021 on the 2nd, right? Because remember, this is the 0 index. Or no, actually, no, that's the date. Never mind. So that's actually correct, right? Okay, so sorry, I fumbled that there, but let's continue, right? So let's try these problems now, right? So your goal is to solve each of the problems here, okay? And there, I've kind of outlined them as in comments, and I've stubbed in a function for you. And what you'll do is you'll get the function to, when we call the function down here, you'll get it to do what it's supposed to do, right? So, so your code should, do something here, probably returns a value, right? Or print something to the console. Okay, so let's go over the problems. So the first problem is to schedule future dates. Okay, so given a date, you're going to return an array or a list of dates separated by a time offset, right? Okay, so the date is going to be a date object. Imagine that that's our starting point, and then we want to find dates consecutively in the future by X number of days offset, okay? So repeat is the number of times you're going to repeat, and offset is how many days should be between each of the days. So for example, if I gave the date of today, and then I said repeat, that thing is bothering me, right? So if I said repeat 3, and then I said offset of 1, then it should return days. It should return dates that are offset by 1 day. So each day should be 3 days, or each of the 3 dates should be 1 day apart. Okay, so if we started with today, then it should return me a list that gives me today, tomorrow, the next day, and the day after. Okay, so if today was the 1st, then this should give me 4 dates. If repeat is 3 and offset is 1, it should give me the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, or date objects that represent those. Okay, so you can just print out the date objects kind of like we did here. Okay, let's talk about the example code here. So here is consecutive dates, and we're going to call the method, right? And you can see that it says new date is 2019 0 month January 1st, right? Let's repeat it 4 times, 3 days apart. So this should be January 1st, January 4th, January 7th, and January 10th, right? And then here's some stretch goals. So add a unit of time. So at the end of the function, you can add one more parameter that says whether you should offset by years, months, or days. Okay. So here you can see if I wrote the function in this way with year on the end, then I should be able to offset by by 1 year. So this would be 3 dates. I guess actually that should be 4 because it should include the first one, but they should be offset by a year. So there's 2019, 2020, 2021. Okay, so here's like an example snippet of code, right? You'd have unit is day, right? Let's talk about problem 2. Okay, so problem 2 is write a function to order dates. So your function should take an array of dates, and you should return them in a list with the oldest date first and the most current date last, right? Okay. So for example, if I ordered the dates that we created above, today, the due date, the start date, your birthday, and New Year's, right? Then it should arrange them all in consecutive order, right? Stretch goal is return an object containing 3 keys, each holding an array of dates, okay? And the first array is going to be the past dates, so all the dates that happened before today right now. And the second array should be the present, so all dates that happened today. And then the third array is going to be an array holding all the dates that happen in the future. Okay, so we've got an object, it should be past. These are the dates that are in the past. Present, these are the dates that are the present. That's today, right? And then the future dates, so any dates that happen tomorrow and further in the future. So that's the stretch goal, right? So just to order them is the main challenge. So if you got that and you have some extra time, you can try the stretch goals. So problem number 3. Okay, so given an array of dates, find the date that will happen next. So you want to find the one that's closest to now but not before. Okay, so find the date that's going to happen next. So these problems, they sound a little abstract, but they're actually very practical to things that people do every day, and the way that, social media and the internet presents, information to you. Oftentimes you'll see, a post and it'll say 3 hours ago or yesterday, right? It doesn't just give you the date, it kind of explains when that occurred. And in order to solve those problems, you kind of have to be able to work with the dates in the ways that we're doing it here, okay? So let's talk about the next problem. So this one's order them. Let's talk about problem number 4. So let's imagine that you're making a birthday planner, right? Sounds like an app. There's plenty of birthday apps out there, right? And you need to write a function that takes a date. Let's imagine it's your birthday or someone's birthday, and a year, and it returns the day of the week for that year, right? So if you include your birthday, it calculates the day when your birthday occurs. Okay, so it should just return something like, like Saturday, right? Or Wednesday, right? So if you said, hey, when's your party? And you included your birthday and you said 2022, I think I saw earlier that my birthday was on Sunday, so this should return Sunday, okay? And then a stretch goal, return an array listing all the days when your birthday occurred since you were born. So you'll have to rewrite this a little bit, but essentially, if you give it the date, it should return an array that tells you gives you a list of all the days when your birthday was born, or when you were born, okay, when your birthday occurred, okay? So anyway, thanks for watching. Good luck with the stretch challenges. I'll kind of review some of them maybe in the next video, and I hope this is educational and fun for you, okay? Thanks for watching.